What happens in business when long-standing loyal partners suddenly turn their backs and align with your fiercest competitor? Boeing must not feel comfortable as it watches once close customers, titans like Emirates, Qantas, and KLM, leave itself and forge new alliances with Airbus. So what exactly went wrong? Why has this dramatic change occurred? Let's dive deeper. Let's start with Emirates, one of the world's largest airlines. It is renowned for its passion for Boeing Air C, especially the Boeing 7, which has become the backbone of its fleet. However, Emirates, known for its reliance on the Boeing 7 for long-haul routes, is gradually shifting towards Airbus. So how is this transformation unfolding? In 2007, Emirates signed a contract to order 70 Airbus A350 aircraft, including 50 A350-920 A351, with a total value of $16 billion at the time. Airbus expected its new A350 series to be a direct competitor to the Boeing 777, which was a cornerstone of long-haul fleets for many airlines, including Emirates. However, despite its commitment to Airbus, Emirates continued to expand its Boeing fleet and maintained its confidence in the U.S. manufacturer's aircraft thanks to its higher passenger capacity, longer range, and greater operational flexibility for long-haul routes. In addition, the preference for Boeing became even more apparent in 2013 when at the Dubai Air Show this airline unveiled a massive order of 150 Boeing 7X aircraft valued at up to $76 billion. This included 115-92 and 35-8, which has a longer range than the Airbus. A 35,900. This decision reflected the airline's long-term strategy, focusing on aircraft with larger capacities to optimize efficiency on long and medium-haul routes. Moreover, another key factor that made Emirates lean towards Boeing was the engines. The Airbus XWB aircraft uses Rolls-Royce Trent XWB engines, while the Boeing 7X is equipped with the G9X engines produced by General Electric. The Middle East airline has a long-standing relationship with General Electric and is familiar with operating and maintaining its engines, while Rolls-Royce had not fully convinced Emirates about the reliability of the Trent XWB engines. Additionally, the Boeing new aircraft offers several design advantages, such as foldable wings, which help optimize space at airports and improve fuel efficiency compared to previous 7 models. For these reasons, just a year later, in June 2014, Emirates made a groundbreaking decision by officially canceling its entire order of 70 Airbus A350 aircraft. It was a shock to Airbus, as Emirates was one of its most important customers, and the loss of this major order had a significant impact on the early prospects of the A350 line. However, the situation changed in 2019 when Boeing continuously delayed the 7X program. Emirates, which had expected to receive its first new aircraft in 2020, began to grow concerned about Boeing's slow progress. As a result, it was at the 2019 Dubai Air Show that this airline returned to Airbus, signing a contract to purchase 50 A350-900s worth $16 billion to ensure its long-haul fleet modernization plan remained on track. After returning to Airbus with this huge order for a 3500s, Emirates continued to closely monitor the development of this aircraft model, as well as the issues Boeing was facing with the 7X program. Therefore, at the 2023 Dubai Air Show, the airline placed an additional order for 15 Airbus A3900s, bringing the total number of orders to 65. This move further reaffirmed Emirates' commitment to Airbus, while also signaling a gradual reduction in its reliance on Boeing in its long-term strategy, not only limited to the A350-900. Emirates has also expressed interest in the Airbus A350 as a potential addition to its fleet in the future. However, the airline has set a condition that Rolls-Royce, the main engine supplier for the XWB aircraft series, must thoroughly address certain issues related to the Trent XWB engines that Emirates had previously raised. Specifically, the airline is concerned about the durability and maintenance costs of these engines in long-haul operations, particularly on routes with extended continuous flight times. Emirates has a long-standing relationship with General Electric, the engine manufacturer for the Boeing 777, and places a high priority on the reliability of engines when making aircraft purchase decisions. Therefore, if Rolls-Royce cannot provide a convincing solution, Emirates may continue to delay its A350 zero order or seek alternative options, it is clear that this Middle East airline has made significant adjustments in its fleet strategy. 7X program, along with Airbus's advantages in performance and delivery times, have forced it to reconsider its options. While it is not completely abandoned Boeing, it is evident that Airbus is increasingly gaining a more important position in Emirates' long-haul fleet development. Plans another airline that shocked the industry. By switching from Boeing to Airbus is Qantas, Australia's national carrier for over 6 decades. Qantas has collaborated with Boeing, operating the airline's aircraft since 1959. At one point, the Australian airline was the only carrier in the world, operating a full fleet of Boeing 747s, reinforcing its deep and historical relationship with the American aircraft manufacturer. Currently, this airline's fleet consists of 125 aircraft, with 89 of them being Boeing. However, this could change in the coming years. In 2021, Qantas announced that it had chosen Airbus as its primary supplier to replace its domestic fleet. The airline committed to purchasing 20 Airbus A321XLs and 20 A2300s, additionally subject to board approval. It holds options to purchase 94 more narrow-body aircraft. These aircraft will replace the Boeing 737 and 717 models the airline has used for years on its domestic Australian routes. Not stopping there, in 2022, it announced that it had ordered 12 Airbus A300 to serve its Sunrise project, a program for direct flights from Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. This decision came after a thorough evaluation, during which both Boeing and Airbus presented their options. Boeing proposed the Try-7X as the optimal replacement for Qantas. However, the airline's rejection of this aircraft raised many questions within the commercial aviation industry regarding the reasons behind this decision. For Boeing, this marks a significant shift in loyalty from one of its iconic customers. While Boeing will continue to supply Dreamliners to Qantas, losing the domestic fleet contract is a major blow to its symbolic standing in the industry. Initial reactions from aviation experts were filled with curiosity, signaling potential ripple effects that this move could have on other airlines. This announcement not only raises questions about this Australian airline's future fleet strategy, but also hints at larger shifts in the dynamics of the industry. But why did the airline choose Airbus aircraft instead of continuing to trust Boeing? Quan's former CEO Alan Joyce emphasized the environmental benefits, stating that the new aircraft would not only help the airline reduce carbon emissions, but also significantly save on fuel. This move clearly signals the airline's confidence in the future, especially as it locked in prices ahead of the surge in demand for next-generation narrow-body aircraft. The Airbus aircraft will play a crucial role in helping Qantas achieve its long-term sustainability goals while boosting operational efficiency in an increasingly competitive aviation landscape. Next is KLM, the national airline of the Netherlands, which has a long-standing relationship with Boeing. KLM's history with Boeing dates back to 1967, when the airline ordered its first Boeing 747 for many decades. Boeing has nearly monopolized KLM's fleet with an overwhelming share of 84%. By the end of 2024, meaning 96 out of the total 115 aircraft in the fleet are Boeing-made. However, a significant issue has emerged. Many of this airline's aircraft have become outdated and need replacing. Notably, the airline's 27 Boeing 7th THR-37s have an average age of around 18 years, making this fleet one of the oldest in the world. Continuing to operate these aging aircraft not only increases maintenance costs, but also impacts operational performance and its commitment to reducing its emissions. With a clear understanding of the need for modernization, KLM evaluated potential replacements for its fleet. Many in the aviation industry expected the airline to continue ordering new aircraft from Boeing, particularly upgraded versions of the 737 MAX. This expectation was further reinforced by a statement from the airline's CEO Ben Smith around 2019, in which he asserted that the airline would rely solely on Boeing 777 and 787 aircraft for long-haul routes. Shortly, however, contrary to these predictions, KLM made a surprising move by announcing an agreement to purchase 134 Airbus aircraft, including A320s for short-haul routes and A350s for long-haul operations. This sudden shift not only reflects considerations of performance and operating cost, but also signals that Boeing is no longer as firmly positioned in this airline's future. Fleet strategy, meanwhile, the Airbus A320 and A350 have been praised for their fuel efficiency, operational flexibility, and lower operating costs compared to their Boeing counterparts. These factors may have played a crucial role in KLM's decision to place its trust in Airbus, despite a legacy of over half a century of close ties with Boeing. So, what is the real reason behind these airlines? Making this change, the switch of airlines from Boeing to Airbus, is not just a strategic decision, but also a reflection of clear differences in performance reliability and delivery capabilities between the two manufacturers. As the aviation industry continuously seeks optimal solutions to reduce costs and enhance operational efficiency, Airbus has emerged as a superior choice for narrow-body aircraft. What happens when loyalty quietly turns into doubt, and doubt turns into action? In business, the most dangerous moment isn't when partners argue openly, it's when they stop explaining themselves at all. And right now, Boeing is watching something it never expected. Airlines that once built their entire identity around Boeing aircraft are slowly and strategically drifting toward its biggest rival. Not with dramatic press conferences, not with public attacks, just quiet decisions that speak louder than any statement ever could. For decades, Boeing didn't just sell planes, it built relationships, trust, long-term dependence. So when industry giants like Emirates, Qantas, and KLM begin realigning their future around Airbus, it raises an uncomfortable question Boeing can't ignore. This wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't random, and it definitely didn't happen overnight. It starts with Emirates, an airline that practically became a flying showcase for Boeing's wide-body dominance. For years, Emirates was known for one thing above all else: scale. Massive aircraft, ultra-long routes, and an unwavering belief that Boeing's 777 family was the ultimate long-haul machine. The 777 didn't just serve Emirates, it defined it. Routes, schedules, fleet planning, and even airport infrastructure were built around that aircraft. For Boeing, Emirates wasn't just a customer. It was proof that their philosophy worked. That's why what happened next caught so many people off guard. Back in 2007, Emirates made what looked like a routine diversification move. It placed an order for Airbus A350 aircraft, signaling interest in Airbus' next-generation widebody. At the time, this didn't raise alarms. Airlines hedged their bets. That's normal. But what stood out was what Emirates did after that. Despite the Airbus deal, it continued doubling down on Boeing. More 777s, bigger commitments, stronger public endorsements. The message was clear: Airbus was an option. But Boeing was the plan. That confidence peaked in 2013 at the Dubai Air Show. Emirates unveiled one of the largest aircraft orders in aviation history: 150 Boeing 777X jets. The announcement sent shockwaves through the industry. It wasn't just about numbers. It was about trust. Emirates was betting its long-haul future on an aircraft that didn't even exist yet. For Boeing, this was validation at the highest level. But behind the scenes, small cracks were already forming. One of those cracks came down to engines, something airlines care about far more than passengers ever realize. Emirates had spent decades operating General Electric engines. Their maintenance teams knew them. Their reliability profiles were familiar. Their costs were predictable. Airbus A350, on the other hand, relied exclusively on Rolls-Royce Trent XWB engines. And while impressive on paper, they hadn't fully earned Emirates' confidence. Reports suggest concerns around durability and long-term maintenance costs, especially on ultra-long routes where engines are pushed to their limits. Still, Emirates stayed patient, at least at first. Then came the delays. The 777X program began slipping, and then slipping again. Delivery timelines moved. Certification targets shifted. What was supposed to be a smooth transition turned into a waiting game with no clear end. For airlines, delays aren't just inconvenient, they're disruptive. Fleet planning works years, sometimes decades, in advance. Routes are approved. Aircraft retirements are scheduled. Crews are trained. When a manufacturer misses deadlines, it doesn't just break promises. it breaks entire business models by 2019. Patience was wearing thin. That year, Emirates made a move few expected. It returned to Airbus with a major A350 order, signaling that Boeing's delays had consequences. This wasn't a dramatic breakup. Emirates didn't cancel Boeing outright. Instead, it did something far more strategic. It reduced risk, it diversified supply, and it ensured that its long-haul expansion wouldn't be held hostage by a single program's timeline. And the shift didn't stop there. As Boeing's 777X delays continued, Emirates doubled down on Airbus again. Additional A350 orders followed. Public language became more measured, less enthusiastic, more cautious. Boeing was still part of the picture, but no longer at the center of it. And while this was unfolding, another loyal Boeing stronghold was making its own quiet exit. Qantas had been flying Boeing aircraft since the 1950s for over 60 years. The relationship was so deep it felt permanent. At one point, Qantas operated an all-Boeing 747 fleet, something no other airline in the world had done. The aircraft wasn't just transportation, it was part of the airline's identity. So when Qantas announced in 2021 that Airbus would become its primary supplier for domestic aircraft, the industry paused. This wasn't a symbolic purchase. It was a full-scale replacement plan. Airbus A321, XLRs, A220s, options for nearly 100 more aircraft, planes that would replace Boeing models Qantas had relied on for decades. And suddenly, Boeing wasn't even in the conversation for large parts of the fleet. The reasons sounded simple on the surface: fuel efficiency, lower emissions, better economics, but beneath that was something deeper. Airlines like Qantas were locking in future flexibility. Airbus narrow-body lineup offered range, capacity, and efficiency combinations Boeing simply couldn't match at the time. Then came Project Sunrise. Was Qantas' most ambitious vision yet non-stop. Flights from Australia to cities like London and New York, routes so long they redefined what long-haul even means. Boeing pitched the 777X as the perfect aircraft for the job. On paper, it made sense. But in the end, Qantas chose the Airbus A350 officially. The decision focused on performance and sustainability. Unofficially, many in the industry began asking a different question. Was Qantas betting on what Boeing promised, or what Airbus could already deliver? That question didn't stay in Australia for long. In Europe, KLM was facing its own reckoning. For decades, Boeing aircraft dominated its fleet. By the mid-2020s, more than 80% of KLM's planes came from Boeing, but many of them were aging. Maintenance costs were climbing. Efficiency targets were getting harder to meet, and environmental pressure was intensifying. Most analysts assumed KLM would stick with Boeing, upgrading to newer MAX and wide-body variants. The airline's leadership had even hinted at that direction in the past. Then came the announcement that changed. Everything KLM revealed plans to acquire a massive number of Airbus aircraft, both narrow-body and wide-body, a complete shift in fleet philosophy. The Airbus A320 family for short-haul routes, the A350 long-haul operations. It wasn't just a purchase, it was a strategic pivot. So why were all these airlines from the Middle East to Australia to Europe reaching the same conclusion at roughly the same time? Because aviation is no longer about loyalty. It's about margins, reliability, and delivery certainty. On narrow-body aircraft, Airbus has built a commanding lead. The A320neo family delivers fuel savings that slightly edge out Boeing's MAX series. The A321neo carries more passengers. The A321XLR flies significantly farther, opening routes Boeing can't currently match. For airlines, that translates directly into revenue and flexibility. The A350 offers longer range, strong efficiency, and high capacity, all with delivery schedules airlines can plan around. Meanwhile, Boeing has been battling certification delays, production slowdowns, and quality control scrutiny that continues to erode confidence. And perhaps most telling of all is delivery pace. As demand for air travel surges, Airbus is putting aircraft into airline hands faster than Boeing. In an industry where growth windows are tight, that matters more than marketing ever could. This doesn't mean Boeing is finished. Far from it, But it does mean the rules have changed. Airlines aren't waiting anymore. They aren't betting blindly. They're spreading risk, choosing certainty, and quietly realigning their futures. The real question now isn't why airlines are shifting away from Boeing. It's whether Boeing can move fast enough and convincingly enough to win them back. And that part of the story is still unfolding. But here's where the story gets even more uncomfortable. For Boeing, this shift isn't being driven by emotion or headlines. It's being driven by cold internal math that most passengers never see. Airlines don't make these decisions based on brand pride. They make them based on risk exposure. And in recent years, Boeing has quietly become the riskier option. When airline executives sit in closed-door meetings, they aren't asking which aircraft looks better or which manufacturer they've worked with the longest. They're asking far more brutal questions. Can this plane arrive on time? Can we trust the certification timeline? Will supply chain issues ground half the fleet during peak season? And most importantly, what happens if things go wrong? That last question has become Boeing's biggest problem. Over the past several years, quality control concerns and production slowdowns have stacked up. Programs meant to restore confidence instead introduced new uncertainty. Airlines watched certification timelines stretch, they watched promised delivery slots evaporate, and they watched internal bowing issues spill into public view, not through marketing failures, but through operational breakdowns that directly affected airline planning. Meanwhile, Airbus stayed boring. And in aviation, boring is powerful. Airbus kept delivering aircraft. Not perfectly, not without challenges, but consistently. When airlines needed narrow-body planes fast, Airbus had options. When they needed long-range efficiency, Airbus had certified solutions ready to go. While Boeing focused on fixing problems, A,